The Shriver Center began as one of the programs in the original War on Poverty 50 years ago. In his mind, legal services was a tool to be used by and on behalf of the actual residents and leaders of those communities. Here we are in 2014 in the midst of a slow but sure recovery from the Great Recession. More and more working people are in poverty. No matter what gets done in Washington, it doesn't become real in people's lives until states and localities make dozens and dozens of policy decisions, funding decisions, program design decisions. People in poverty need a seat at the table when those decisions are made. And that's what we do, provide that capacity. It's also the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act and the March on Washington, just as it's the 50th anniversary of the War on Poverty. You cannot really address poverty in this country without also addressing racial disparities and vice versa. In 2014, we launched the first delivery of our Racial Justice Training Institute. We had a tremendous group of 40 lawyers who took our racial justice training, who have formed the beginnings of an action network to address the problems of poverty.
There's sort of multiple components. One is actually improving outcomes for persons of color, and also then building a framework, a network for systems change across the country so that this work is really happening effectively, and happening often.
11 different states working in teams from very different kinds of communities, tackling really hard and really important issues.
Like all legal services organizations, we are under-resourced and overworked, and we need to be directing our work at the populations that most desperately need our services.
You're doing anti-poverty work, race isn't there. All of your clients are black, all of your clients are Latino. You see that, and for years it's just not really spoken. And for me, it's going to be a few years down. I want to be able to just confront the issue of race.
It's giving me language, it's giving me tools, and I think it's also giving me a support network, a group of people that maybe I can call upon to say, hey, I'm having this challenge, can you help me?
In another case that we were involved in against the city of Joliet, the city was trying to condemn a project-based Section 8 development on its riverfront and alleged that the families had come from the demolished public housing in Chicago and that they were the rats from public housing who had come to the city of Joliet. We have ensured that a significant portion of that housing will be preserved and those families' rights will be protected.
So through the work that we do with litigation and with legislative initiatives, we're always trying to think creatively here in Chicago and nationwide to preserve affordable housing. In the 60s and 70s, the primary way that HUD subsidized housing was to provide mortgage insurance to private developers. Now, 40 years later, those subsidies are expiring, and so the Shriver Centers had to be very creative to be sure that the residents that are living in those affordable units don't lose their affordability. One of the ways that the Shriver Center has been able to use a creative opportunity is to take subsidies that a building here in Chicago called Lake Village East, and taking those subsidies that are designed for the resident and making sure that they stay in the unit after those residents leave. And what the tenants have done here at Lake Village East is to preserve the affordability for not just the individual residents, but for the entire building.
We were the first building to have this conversion in Illinois to have a project-based voucher be offered to our residents.
Not only have we organized correctly through our community organization, but also too, we had a legal team behind us that was able to answer these in-depth questions regarding any kind of housing law.
We believe our role is to listen to our clients, to understand what their needs are, and then to give them the legal backdrop to make their decisions and to really carry their own project forward.
So you have someone like myself who does pay market rent, but I have friends who are under HUD subsidy, and I actually was under HUD subsidy years ago. I wanted to be able to protect anyone, even as the community continues to grow around us.
We were not just a model for Chicago, but potentially nationwide.
Shriver Center, in addition to some other community partners, started something called Help Hub, which is an online technical assistance center for about 1,500 enrollment specialists. Problems surfaced very quickly, particularly with legal permanent residents who are entitled to healthcare benefits through the Affordable Care Act not being eligible because of an enrollment process, a problem on healthcare.gov. So Illinois was able to quickly bring these stories to federal government officials at HHS and CMS. And because of that, we were helping to push for changes in the application, which we did get.
Pregnant workers were coming to their employers asking for some accommodation, very reasonable things that don't cost really any money at all, and were being fired because of that. We decided we needed to do something about it. We had a big success with our pregnancy accommodations bill. This will ensure that pregnant workers don't have to choose between their job and maintaining a healthy pregnancy.
We had the opportunity to really be at the forefront of a movement to remove the inquiry of has anyone been convicted of a crime from the initial employment application. So 65 million Americans have a criminal record of some sort. And what that can mean in the employment context, that's a large population of individuals who essentially are subjecting themselves to being underemployed or unemployed for long periods simply because they have a record.
The governor signed a piece of legislation that is going to make a remarkable change in the lives of people with conviction records in Illinois. People are considered based on their qualifications for the job, their work history, and only at the point where the employer is ready to make you a job offer do they look into the conviction record.
I was asked by Mayor Rahm Emanuel to co-chair with Alderman Will Burns his working group to study whether Chicago should have its own minimum wage. We proposed that the minimum wage in Chicago be $13 an hour, that we get there by 2019. There's about 400,000 workers who will get a raise.
So another major accomplishment here at the Shriver Center this year has been the secure choice legislation. The Illinois legislature just passed the most comprehensive auto enrollment retirement savings program in the country. The law that was passed in Illinois will cover any employer that has more than 25 employees. That is much more expansive than the current sets of implementation around these types of laws.
We've begun to bring together, convene the state-based law and policy advocacy groups from across the country who do this work. They represent in those states as 3/4 of all the people in poverty in the country. By bringing everyone together, we hope to strengthen each other's work and also project more power on behalf of the people we represent to win the positive changes by doing things together than we could do by continuing to work separately. Shriver was very, very friendly, very supportive, but also very demanding. So he would say, "What have you done today to make the world a better place for people in poverty?" And he would say it in such a way that you knew he thought you could, but he also expected you to.